I do think there's something about when you've got a strong woman in a leadership role, they are a lot more nurturing in how they think of their impact, their day-to-day impact and behaviours on things. I've seen that a lot, and especially in the sector that I work in, which is all to do with sustainability and social value. Women are leading those conversations around those tables.
This week on Great Conversations, my guest is Heather de Groot, the co-founder of Be Ethical Training. Enjoy. Heather de Groot, welcome to Great Conversations. How are you doing today, my love?
I'm better today. To be honest, I've had a bit of a hormonal week, but today I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good today.
Yay for that. Ending the week on a high note. I love it. Thank you for being here. We're going to start with the question that has been left for you by our previous guest. So, Heather, what have you learned later in life that you wish you had been taught at school?
So at school, I was always the chatterboxed, the feisty one, the language that was used, and I still hear it today with young girls, around like leadership, which you might hear in boys, and confidence. But I feel like as an entrepreneur now, as a business owner, if that language and those skills were taught to me to say, you're not just feisty, you've got a voice, you've got something to say. So entrepreneurship for me would have been a great skill to learn at school. I know there's business studies and things like that, but I think the turbulence that I felt as a business owner on my journey, the inconsistency of it, the wobbly moments of the security, which you taught throughout school, you're pretty much taught to come out to be an employee and to work for someone else. And I just wish that the skills that I know I've got now, so my leadership skills, my entrepreneurship that I have, I wish it was nurtured a little bit more in school. Maybe through some more mentorship and seeing other women, and there were women 30 odd years ago, that were doing roles like this today.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you actually, like, how are you defining entrepreneurship? So when you say you would have liked to have been taught it, like how are you defining it? What do you mean by that?
Yes, that's a good question. So I think entrepreneurship is about thinking outside the box. It's creation, it's innovation, it's striving for change, continuous improvement. I think you can be a business owner, so you can, go down the route of setting your own accountancy, or go down the route of creating something that, is a version that already exists. I think entrepreneurship goes one step further, and it's a bit more trying to challenge the status quo, create something that's not been seen before, not necessarily if it's a product or service. It could be a way of thinking or a methodology around something, which is what me and my business partner Caroline are doing with Be Ethical now.
I love your distinction between being a business owner and being an entrepreneur, because I hadn't actually really thought about it in that way, because you are right, aren't you? Like, I would think I was a business owner when I ran my consultancy, and now I'm an entrepreneur, and it is very different. The things that I'm dealing with now are different, and it is a huge sort of learning curve and journey, as you're like what you've just sort of referred to. And I'm really interested in what you sort of alluded to when you were younger, of the badges that were put on you around you being feisty, but maybe your male peers were leaders. Like, what are some of the blockers, the blockers that you've encountered as a female moving into entrepreneurialism?
So there's a huge gap in investment and funding for female-led businesses. Huge, absolutely huge. Like a recent study in the last couple of years showed that 1% of, angel investment went into female-led businesses. 1%. It's shocking.
But then also what's so shocking about that as well is when you look at the statistics around the most successful businesses, like the isn't it the best performing businesses on the S&P 500 and FTSE 100 are female-led businesses. So it's like, where's the disconnect? We know what we're doing.
Yes, we do. I think it's that. I think there's something really beautiful about, and we see it on when you have female women, on boards within businesses. The conversation is a lot more holistic, and I don't know whether it's just our nurturing nature, and I don't want to stereotype, the whole male and female. I think everyone brings everything to the table. I think that diversity is massively key when it comes to entrepreneurship and leadership. I love being challenged on my thought process. I love listening to other ways and means for people to, get to things. But I do think there's something about when you've got a strong woman in a leadership role, they are a lot more nurturing in how they think of their impact, their day-to-day impact and behaviors on things. I've seen that a lot, and especially in the sector that I work in, which is all to do with sustainability and social value. Women are leading those conversations around those tables, which is a great thing for me and Caroline, who are a female-led business in this space, knowing that that collaboration, women do look after women. I've seen that as well.
It's about paying it forward, isn't it? And like leaving if you've struggled to get to where you are, and it's like it's leaving the door open, isn't it, for the people that come behind you. It's doing what you can. I was listening to Michelle Obama was talking. I was listening to something she was saying the other day about like climbing the ladder and progressing and sort of moving forward in your life, and sometimes you have to leave people behind in order for you to continue on your journey. But that doesn't mean that once you get to where you need to be, you can't turn around and extend a hand and then help pull those people and bring them forward and bring them up with you. And I thought that was a really powerful analogy of I think what you're talking to now and what I'm seeing in the female entrepreneurial space is that. And what else have you found? Like what are some of the other, even just sort of, I'm curious, like the qualities that you're referring to as well of, how you show up in terms of being vulnerable and open and collaborative, and you use this word nurturing, which I love, which is not something that you would typically maybe ascribe to the world of entrepreneurialism. So I'm curious, like, as the way that I should maybe take a step back, how would you describe yourself and the qualities that you bring to being an entrepreneur?
I think so. When I started out onto this journey, I was very much a self-employed freelancer when I started after I was made redundant, and that was a huge roller coaster personally for me, because as I've mentioned, I had these real deep rooted beliefs about my value and what I thought it was people please, and I just wanted to people please, but I wanted to prove my value all the time. And as I've gone on this journey, I've realized that I need to own my value, not prove it. Like, I've got vast amounts of experience in the industry that we're in. I know that I can prove value, but there's something that I've had to work on, which is within me. It's myself, holding myself back in certain situations. So I've done a lot of personal development, a lot of training, to try and lean into my strengths, but also look at. So interestingly enough, my coach at the moment, who I'm working with, we're looking at core values, which sounds very corporate. And I was a bit like, oh God, I've done values enough times with businesses and stuff, but actually personal values, but also shadow values. So the things that you hold true to yourself and your strengths, they have a dark side almost. So if you're a naturally generous person and you keep giving and giving and giving, which is wonderful and brings you joy, will that eventually turn into, oh, now I want something back, or I feel like I'm owed something, or something like that? So there's a shadow side to that, and I thought that was really interesting. So I'm on a constant learning curve of self-awareness and development, and also about 2.5 years ago, I decided to stop drinking. So I've quit alcohol, and that freed up so much space, not externally, like my world externally hasn't changed, but internally there's just so much more space in my head now, and so much time I've got been given back to look at my own self-awareness and development. And I don't think that's going to get to a point. I think it's just going to constantly grow and change, and it's really exciting of all the wonderful things that are out there that you can do. It's finding the techniques that work for you. But I'm very structured and I'm very process driven, which is great because, when I hand it over to someone else, I'm very good at delegating and I'm very good at boundaries and setting those things. But if something gets thrown into the mix, as in life, in general, as it does, I'm really thrown, and it takes me a while to go, right, you can't do that today. You can't follow your process or your tick list. You've got to pivot and move. And that fluidity, which comes with entrepreneurship and running your business, has taken me a while to do, and I'm still doing it. What I'm finding is once I let go of this whole rigidness around certain things, it opens up so much more space for new opportunities and new collaborations to come into my life. And
well, it's control, isn't it? I mean, we all do that. We get a lot of comfort from being in control. And so that means that sometimes we hold on to things too tightly, and it doesn't necessarily work. And as you say, it's sort of being capable of surrendering our control and then seeing what comes up when we do. And it is amazing. I've experienced it myself. One of the things that I'm really enjoying is watching you talk about yourself so compassionately with such a deep level of self-awareness. And I personally find that really empowering and really inspiring. And I am curious, what has your journey been to get to this place now?
so I think it's a combination of letting go of certain things in my life that I've maybe fogged a little bit of where I wanted to go. So, for example, the giving up alcohol, my relationship with that, I just fell out of love with it. And I felt like it was a bit of either a confidence boot. I always thought I was a confident person, and I do come across as really confident with, when I deliver a lot of workshops and talks, and I'm doing podcasts, and I put myself out there a lot on LinkedIn, but it takes a lot of energy to do that. And I think what I've learned on the journey of letting go of certain things that I've realized I'm leaning on a little bit to feel like I need, that whole energy piece is really something that I've found fascinating. And I'm trying to listen to myself more. And that's come through that whole allowing myself more space to think about it, being in that vulnerable space of letting go of the alcohol and sitting there and going, okay, what does this look like on a social level for going out with my friends and, being with my husband? Because in my 20s, alcohol played a big part in who I was and my character. And I'm that type of person, like it's all or nothing. And it's the same in my work as well. It's like, it's all or nothing, but I've just got to let go a little bit more. And that was the first thing that I let go, was the alcohol. And it's been incredible.
I think everyone can resonate with being a different person when they drink alcohol, a lot more maybe confident, and, they'll do things, they'll say things that without a drink they would never do. And obviously it's a really useful, socially acceptable tool to numb yourself to pain of what's going on. Like, it's mad, isn't it? Like, at every point and every stage, there's an excuse to drink. You've had a really hard day, pour yourself a glass of wine or have a beer. You've had a big win, grab a drink. It's your birthday, it's Christmas, it's whatever, Easter, have a drink. Someone dies, have a drink. Like, at every point we're encouraged to use alcohol as such an integral part of key milestones in our life, not realizing the impact that has on our connection to ourselves.
I'm just so proud of myself that I've made this life choice decision, just like, going vegetarian or, something like that. I'm really proud of the willpower. And that's probably one of my good key strengths that I've got is willpower. I'm really good at, if I make a decision on something, I'll stick it out. And I've been asked the question by a lot of family members: is this it? Will you ever revisit it? And I think the answer is no, because I'm going through this whole experience. I'm on my own journey, and I've unpicked something. I'm seeing like there's more to do and more to explore, and I want to be fully present for this whole experience. And it might sound a bit cheesy, but yeah, for me, it was the right decision, and I'm really enjoying it not having any control over me or anything like that. So it's been wonderful, but hard.
Alan Carr, but not the not the comedian. He's got he writes, doesn't he, about how to give up alcohol, and I have actually read that book, and it is really interesting because, as you say, he frames it in such a powerful way of which I think actually we can bring into every aspect of our life, which is our mind talk and the power that our mind has and the stories that we create in order to keep us safe within our comfort zones. So he talks about with alcohol, it's a little gremlin that's sitting in your brain that's saying you need it. And okay, yeah, there's physiological things around, like sugar high, and but it's just that, it's just a voice, it's just a story that this voice is narrating, which is you need it and you want it. It's about accepting and acknowledging that voice in your brain, and then writing another story, reframing it, sitting with it, not letting it overtake you. It's like that pause before reacting. And I think that has sort of that mindset and the ability to be self-aware and then in control and in choice is, I think you can sort of extrapolate that to every part of your life, isn't it? That's how you start to sort of step more onto the path that the of maybe empowerment and bringing what your authentic self into the world. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is, there's obviously there's this such a strong commitment for you to get to know yourself better and at a much deeper level. But I am really interested, like, we're obviously meeting you now, but what were you like what was your life pre this?
I feel I've had very unrealistic high expectations of myself. So I was always striving to, get the next experience and work my way up in a role. And when, I hit the glass ceiling, as many women have experienced in the corporate world, I got very frustrated and got very almost bitter about things. And I, as I said before, like my 20s were all about trying to strive to be the best version externally of what people expected from me, or even though they didn't expect it from me. Like, I had these really high goals for myself. I was in a corporate company looking after all of their corporate social responsibility. So it was a wonderful role to be in, because it was like, it was all to do with employee engagement and looking at how to use the values and get them involved in community work and challenges. And it was a wonderful role. But I was always like, right, what's the next thing? How can we implement this? And in the corporate world, things have to, there's a ranking, there's an order of things, they have to be signed off. And I found that whole red tape so frustrating. 20-year-old Heather was very ambitious, very driven, I'm an Aries, so I'm fire as well. I'm head down, ram it through, get it done, tick it off the list, don't celebrate it, on to the next thing.
Was that like the ambitious Heather, the wanting to sort of go, move up, succeed, is like, what impact of your childhood and actually growing up in Liverpool did that where did that come from? Did you see that around your parents? Was it like, I want to be different and grow and transcend my upbringing? Like, I'm just interested.
So I think where that has come from, where my drive has come from, my parents have a fantastic work ethic, and that has always been instilled in me from a very young age. So as soon as I got my national insurance number details and all those little bits and bobs, my dad took me for my first interview. I was 15 and a half, and he literally sat next to me for my interview as I was just interviewed for a part-time job on the weekends, and I got that role. It was in Holiday Inn Express doing the breakfasts on the weekend. And looking back now, my dad would wake up at 5 a.m. to take me in to work on his weekends, just to instill that whole, you work, you earn money, you buy nice things, you look after the things. So I'm hugely grateful for that. I think my drive, willpower, work ethic comes from mum and dad. They've instilled a lot about the value of money to me, and how important it is to nurture and save and do all those wonderful things. But at the same time, the shadow side of that has been the fluidity around change, the insecurity about running your own business. And when I first told my parents I was not going to look for another employee job after I was made redundant, I was going to set up my own business, they were scared for me. They were, because they were just like, well, where's your pension? Where's your sick pay? Where's your comfort blanket? But where was my comfort blanket when I was made redundant? That can be taken away from you. And lucky enough, I had Caroline, my husband, who's, self-employed. They were like, no, you can make this work. We've made this work. You've got something in you to make this work. And eventually when my parents started seeing me, grow the business, they're my biggest fans and stuff now. They love watching what I do. But initially they were scared for me. And I think, and this as well, Nicola, you're from a very entrepreneurial family. When you are trying to do something outside the box of the normal structure and formality around how your family functions, it can be quite scary for them. And then obviously very disjointed for you, because when you come into a conversation and you're talking about stuff and someone's like, well, how does that work? And so you're not getting paid this month, but you're getting paid. Oh, okay. So there's peaks and troughs, and going through that roller coaster. And then having my husband who does that himself has been lovely, because he gets it as well. And he's from a very entrepreneurial family, and so they've got it that side. And so there's a lot of traits that I've been given now that I totally value: the whole willpower, the drive, the work ethic that I've got, understanding the value of money. But at the same time, I've had to have a look at some of things that I've been told growing up, and reassess that, because my relationship with money isn't great. I get that it's important, but I'm almost terrified of it, and that doesn't welcome more into your life when you're like that. So I'm going through my whole journey with trying to reassess that at the moment as well. But I think it's one of them. You've got to lean into your strengths, but at the same time be so self-aware of the things that you need to work on as well. The self-awareness has been wonderful, because I've identified when my limiting beliefs or behaviours start coming through, and I'll stop myself. And then what I'm now trying to learn is the tools to pivot and shift into a better space. At the moment, currently, it's like, oh, okay, there's that again. Okay, there's that again. I'll just leave that over there and do something else. Where now I'm trying to shed a bit of light on it and do the graft of unpicking it and unpicking those roots and trying to change stuff. So that's what I'm currently working on at the moment.
And that's what's so important, isn't it? Because I love what you're saying about money and relationship to money, and limiting beliefs and blockers, because I think there's also not a generalization, but there's something for, this is possibly my belief as well, but for a woman to stand up and say, we want to make money, we care about money, we're driven by money, there's something that seems really unladylike about that. And so it isn't I find what you're saying about that really fascinating, because one of the things on my own entrepreneurial journey has been also looking at my relationship with money. But it is really interesting when I think you start to bring money and female entrepreneurialism together, and looking at your relationship to money, looking at your financial goals, and starting to sort of, yeah, acknowledge and be okay with saying, no, but I want to be financially successful. And this is what financial success looks like for me. This is why I believe I deserve it. And this is why I'm going to get out my own way in order to go and achieve that. And that be okay. And I'm just curious, like, what have you, as you've gone on that journey of exploration for you and your relationship to money, and then how that impacts Be Ethical and the business that you're growing, like, what have you uncovered?
So I think what you touched on before, it's not very ladylike, is totally right. Like I've every time the conversation of money with a client comes up, I feel I feel like this greedy salesperson, like sat there like there. And it's a real trigger for Caroline, my business partner, as well. We really struggle with the money conversation. But it's important because you're running a business, you need to make money, it needs to be sustainable. That's the nature of business. But I think you're right, for women, it's practice. It's having those conversations quite early on. You're just getting used to using the terminology and knowing what your value is and worth. And the fact that, at the end of the day, your goal is to grow your business. But if your values are right within that business, eventually when you start making a better and bigger profit, you reinvest that into bigger and greater things. Like one of the goals for myself and Caroline is when we grow Be Ethical, we want to reinvest in other female-led businesses. I hate that word, a whole putting back into the ecosystem and stuff, but it's the right thing to do. Like we want to show other women that this is a path that you can take. There's loads of transferable skills that you've got and you can do, and you don't necessarily, and there's funding out there, and there's spaces, and a lot of the time it's finding your tribe to talk about these things with, and practice pitches and conversations. And so it's come with practice for us. Also, I think becoming a mum has made me step into a lot more of my power of what my time's worth. So previously, before I had Sonny, I would spend a lot of time prepping just for a coffee with someone, and doing over delivering. And that's still a problem that I've got now, because it's this whole proving my worth piece, but over delivering on things. Whereas now we've learned things like how to qualify a lead. They have to fill in a form before they get to us. And one of the questions is, do you have a budget to invest in this work? Straight off the bat. Because then if they don't, we can give them some great free resources that we've got, so that we haven't left them out on the cold. But at the same time, we're not investing all that time to go and have a coffee with them and do everything else with them and stuff. So we've narrowed down that whole sales process and money conversation. And it's still a tricky topic for the both of us, because we have these underlying limiting beliefs that we've been told throughout our lives. Women don't talk about money, but money's energy.
Yeah. What's really standing out is, like, across so many different parts of your life, and just seeing that you are defining these terms and these labels and these roles in a way that works for you. It's so empowering. It's like ridiculously inspiring. And one of the things that I would love is, for anyone that might be thinking, oh, maybe the world of entrepreneurialism is something that I'd like to get into. What advice would you have for like how to start on that path?
So from mindset perspective, I would say you need to find what brings you joy, because if you do something you love, you never work another day, So I would definitely be like, just try different things, lean into the things that you find passion about, and the stuff that lights you up inside. That's the stuff that you're naturally going to get better at, and progression, and you attract people. One of the things that me and Caroline do really well is our energy around what we do. So from a mindset perspective, it is finding where you want to go and testing it and trying it. And then from a practicality, it would be mentorship, a coach, a therapist, whatever, fits you, to just voice out loud your barriers, your blocks, your limiting beliefs, and explore that journey. Yeah, it's about honing your craft, figuring out what you love, and then finding someone who you look up to and respect, and then reach out to them for some guidance and support massively.
Absolutely. And for me, I'd also add as well, which I think is implicit in what you're saying, it is this dedication and commitment and hard work with patience and compassion, because it doesn't happen overnight. And so there's the amount of things that I've had to overcome and deal with, and the perseverance. I don't think if I'd been as grounded in exactly what you're talking about, the joy and the passion that I have for Integrate, that's what got me through. That's what kept me persevering, and despite all the hardships, despite all the barriers. So, Heather, we have a closing tradition on this podcast. I ask all of my guests, what is something that other people value that you don't?
So this one might be a bit controversial. I'm gonna say social media. So I get it. I get the power of it. I get that it connects people. I use it. I use LinkedIn for business a lot, and I've hopped back onto Instagram to watch my sister. She's gone traveling around India, so I know what she's like on Instagram, so I can keep an eye on an update on her. But it was actually a conversation I had with someone close to me where I wasn't when I stopped drinking. I also, classic me, I'm all in. I left social media as well, and I showed them a picture, and they were like, "Why haven't I seen this picture? Oh yeah, you're not on social media. Oh, that's a bit of a waste." And then I thought, wow, like I have to live my life through a social media channel for it to be of value or worth. And I realized that that's when I didn't have the same feeling towards it as other people. And I said to that person, like, yeah, but now I'm experiencing your reaction in real time, physically sat next to you, of how you feel about that photograph. Like, if I put it through social media, it would have just gone into the scrolling ether of everyone else's. And then when I brought it up next time, you would just gone, oh yeah, I've seen it. And then we wouldn't have had a connection over me explaining it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's probably one of the things that in my self-discovery I've gone, oh, some people really, really love that and really sort of lean onto it more than what I thought.
Do you know what? It actually makes sense given what you've said about you've referenced energy quite a few times in our conversation. So it actually makes sense that you would say that, because it's sort of it's a barrier and a blocker to people's energy and connection as well, isn't it? So yeah, no, I hear you. Heather, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for your openness and your inspiration. It's been awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
In this episode, Heather talked a lot about her personal development journey. If you want to kickstart your own personal development journey, why not try Integrate's platform? It's packed full of bite-sized, on-demand learning, mindfulness, and coaching resources for you to use whenever and wherever you need. You get a 7-day free trial, so you can try it risk-free as well. Go over to www.integrate.net/platform to sign up today. As always, I'd like to say thank you to my editor, Stian Moritz, and musician, Jamie Jenkin. Sending you all so much love. Bye for now.